I was never afraid of stairs. Until that morning. Edward Miller is 73 years old, a retired electrical engineer from Ohio. The kind of man who once climbed onto his own roof at 60 to fix a power line without blinking. But one quiet March morning something changed. He was in the kitchen making breakfast, reached for the kettle, took one step toward the stairs, and then his legs gave out. No pain, no warning, just emptiness. He sat there on the floor staring at the 3 steps in front of him. For the first time he wasn't sure if he could get back up. At the hospital he feared the worst. A stroke maybe, or a pinched nerve. But the scans came back clean. No trauma, no neurological damage, just weakness, unexpected, quiet, creeping weakness. His doctor asked him a simple question: "What supplements are you taking daily?" That's when the truth began to unravel. Edward, like many people over 60, had been faithfully taking 2 over-the-counter vitamins. They were marketed as essential, safe, even protective. But in reality, they were slowly draining the strength from his legs, not overnight. Not dramatically, but quietly. Each day a little less stability, a little more fatigue, and a growing distance between who he was and who he feared he might become. If you or someone you love is taking vitamins daily in hopes of preserving joint health, muscle mass, or mobility, you need to hear this. In this video, you'll discover the 2 most harmful vitamins silently weakening millions of seniors' legs, and 3 small but powerful changes that helped Edward regain control, strength, and dignity in just a few weeks. You'll also learn how to spot the early signs before it's too late, and how to adjust your routine to reclaim the power in your steps. So, what exactly turned Edward's strong legs into trembling uncertainty? And why are so many older adults unknowingly caught in the same trap? Let's find out. You're getting up slower each morning. Maybe it's not your knees. Maybe your muscles are fading. At first, Edward thought he was just stiff from sleeping in the wrong position. He laughed it off, rubbed his knees, and reached for the wall to balance himself before heading down the hallway. But then it started taking him longer to stand up from the couch. The stairs felt steeper than before. His calves tightened during the night for no clear reason, and most days, getting dressed felt like a small workout. He never considered it serious. After all, isn't that just part of aging? But what Edward, and so many others, didn't know is that these aren't just signs of getting older. They're early symptoms of something called sarcopenia, a silent process that causes the muscles in your legs to slowly melt away over time. It begins as early as 60 and affects nearly 60% of people over 65. The body doesn't shout when it loses muscle. It whispers. Through small struggles, subtle hesitations, a feeling that your legs just don't fire the way they used to. What makes it dangerous is that most people, like Edward, blame the wrong thing. They think it's their age, their arthritis, or maybe they've just been less active lately. And so they don't ask questions. They don't look deeper. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, poor nutrition or the wrong kind of supplements may be quietly accelerating the decline. One morning, Edward tried to pick up his granddaughter. She was only 4, barely 30 pounds. But halfway through lifting her, he felt his knees wobble and had to set her back down. He smiled to hide the embarrassment, but inside something sank. That's when he realized, it's not just about standing up. It's about staying strong enough to show up for the people you love. So what was draining his strength? And could it really be hidden in something as small as a daily vitamin? Let's look closer. Vitamin A helps your vision stay sharp, but take the wrong dose and your legs may no longer hold you up. Edward started taking vitamin A at 71. A friend from his church swore by it. "It keeps your skin young and your eyes clear," she said, sliding a bottle across the table after Sunday service. It sounded harmless, helpful even. Each softgel had 1,500 mcg of vitamin A, and Edward took one every morning faithfully for almost 2 years. What he didn't realize was that the safe upper limit for someone his age is around 900 mcg per day. And that number includes not just pills, but the vitamin A already present in liver, eggs, and dairy products. By the time he noticed the tightness in his thighs, the dull aches in his hips, and the occasional stiffness in his lower back, the damage was already beginning. His body wasn't breaking down from age alone. It was quietly reacting to an overload it couldn't flush out. Vitamin A, when taken in excess, begins to interfere with the way your body absorbs magnesium and calcium. These two minerals are critical for muscle contraction, bone strength, and joint mobility. Without them, your muscles may feel tired even after rest. Your bones may become fragile without warning. In Edward's case, even a short walk left him sore for hours. Studies from the NIH have shown that excessive vitamin A intake increases the risk of hip fractures by 1.8 times in people over 70. That means you could be doing something you believe is good for your body, while silently increasing your chances of a serious fall. And the worst part, you wouldn't even know until the moment your leg gives out beneath you. Edward didn't need to be convinced by research. His body was already telling him something wasn't right. And the lesson he learned is one many people overlook. Not every supplement is safe just because it's sold over the counter. And more doesn't mean better. So what happened when Edward stopped taking that daily dose? What did he switch to instead? We'll uncover that next. But first, there's one more vitamin that caused even more damage than he expected. Let's talk about it. Edward took vitamin D to strengthen his bones, but after 3 months he started cramping every single night. At first, it felt like a mild twitch in his calf. Then it grew into a tight pull, waking him up at 2 or 3 a.m., forcing him to sit on the edge of the bed and massage his legs in silence while his wife slept. He described it as a rope inside my leg that kept tightening every morning. He thought maybe he needed more water. Maybe it was just stress, but the cramps got worse, not better. They moved from his calves to his thighs. His legs felt heavy, stiff, and tired even before breakfast. And that's when he remembered the new supplement he'd started taking just a few months earlier. A bright yellow bottle labeled Bone Support Vitamin D3, 5,000 IU. Edward was taking 5,000 IU of vitamin D every day without medical supervision. He believed he was doing the right thing. After all, vitamin D is supposed to help calcium absorption and keep bones strong. But what he didn't know was that too much vitamin D can lead to a dangerous condition called hypercalcemia. That's when calcium builds up in your blood to toxic levels. And instead of strengthening your bones, it starts hurting your muscles, your nerves, and even your kidneys. Hypercalcemia can cause muscle cramps, joint stiffness, fatigue, and in severe cases, kidney stones. And it all starts silently. You might feel a burning in your legs, a tension that doesn't go away, a growing sense that your body just isn't bouncing back like it used to. According to the Mayo Clinic, 30% of older adults take vitamin D in incorrect doses, and many experience impaired mobility and chronic discomfort as a result. Edward's story isn't rare. In fact, it's increasingly common. Many seniors take 2,000 to 5,000 IU daily, believing more is better. But the recommended amount is usually closer to 800 IU per day unless a doctor prescribes otherwise. The body stores excess vitamin D in fat tissues, which means it doesn't leave your system quickly. It builds up, quietly, until one day your legs start sending signals you can't ignore. The lesson Edward learned was simple. Even the sunshine vitamin can cast a shadow when misused. But what if the problem isn't just what you take, but how your body processes it? Let's look at one common habit that's silently making vitamin overload even worse. If you often wake up to your legs suddenly locking in pain, it might be time to take a closer look at that supplement you're swallowing each night. Edward started noticing it after dinner. A strange heaviness in his legs, like walking through wet sand. He thought it was just fatigue from the day, but the feeling didn't go away after rest. And then came the nighttime cramps. Sharp, sudden, twisting pain that jolted him awake like a silent alarm clock. At first, it was once a week, then every other night, Eventually, he started sleeping with a heating pad by the bed, hoping to outpace the pain. Nothing worked. Until one day, his doctor mentioned something unexpected. Low-grade inflammation. The truth is our bodies don't always shout when they're inflamed. Sometimes they whisper, through tingling toes, cold feet, a dull ache in the calves after a salty meal, or interrupted sleep from muscles tightening in the dark. For Edward, the trigger wasn't obvious. He drank plenty of water, ate a balanced dinner, but he was also taking a high-dose vitamin D supplement, eating salty soup, and skipping magnesium-rich foods all at once. That combination, over time, became a recipe for inflammation. Many people think leg cramps are due to low potassium. That's not always the case. For seniors, it's often the result of mineral imbalance. Too much vitamin D can pull calcium into the bloodstream, but without enough magnesium, muscles can't relax properly. Add in excess sodium, and the kidneys become strained, further disrupting electrolyte balance. What follows is a cascade of tiny dysfunctions that your legs feel first, because they carry you all day long. Edward was shocked to learn that his cramps weren't from overuse or poor circulation, but from micronutrient overload paired with dehydration and diet. Once he adjusted his supplements, added more leafy greens, and cut back on processed sodium, the cramps eased within 2 weeks. And for the first time in months, he slept through the night without waking in pain. But supplements aren't always the villain. Sometimes, it's the way we combine them. And nothing reveals that more clearly than the story behind Edward's daily multivitamin. Let's talk about that next. That supplement you take every morning might be hurting your liver, stressing your kidneys, and quietly draining the strength from your legs. Edward didn't think twice when he bought that multivitamin. The label said, for adults 50 plus. It sounded right. 1 pill a day to cover all the bases. Simple, convenient, safe. But when he looked closely, after weeks of leg cramps, joint tightness, and digestive fatigue, he noticed something alarming. Each tablet contained 1,000 mcg of vitamin A, 2,000 IU of vitamin D and iron. Not separate, all in one, every single day. What Edward didn't realize, and what many don't, is that the aging body doesn't handle vitamins the way it did at 40. As we grow older, our metabolism slows and our organs, especially the liver and kidneys, process nutrients more slowly. That means what gets absorbed takes longer to leave the body. It starts to accumulate, silently, day after day. According to a 2021 study published in JAMA, over 25% of adults over 65 in the U.S. are using multivitamin formulas that exceed safe levels for at least one nutrient. And the consequences: fatigue, nausea, poor sleep, muscle loss, even kidney strain, cardiac stress, and nerve damage in long-term cases. For Edward, it explained the persistent leg heaviness and why walking even short distances left him winded. He trusted the bottle, but not all multivitamins are created for seniors with slower systems. Many are formulated for the general population, not for aging adults with different needs. It's a common trap, taking more to feel safer, without realizing that more isn't better, especially when your body is already doing more work to keep up. Edward made a choice. He stopped the multivitamin, switched to targeted nutrition through food, and consulted his doctor about what his body truly lacked. Within weeks, his sleep improved. The swelling in his ankles faded. His morning walks didn't leave him short of breath. But Edward wasn't the only one falling into this trap. In fact, what happened next came from someone even closer to him, and revealed an even more common mistake. Let's explore that. Your friend might swear by that vitamin, but your body might not need it at all. Shirley was Edward's neighbor for more than 20 years. They shared Sunday coffee, grocery runs, and stories about their grandkids. When Edward started taking his daily multivitamin, it wasn't long before Shirley decided to do the same. "If it's good for you, it's probably good for me too," she joked. But within a few weeks, Shirley began experiencing strange symptoms. First came the muscle cramps, Then sleepless nights. Her legs felt restless and her energy dropped. She brushed it off at first. Maybe she just needed more water, or maybe the weather was affecting her. But deep down, something didn't feel right. The problem wasn't the vitamin itself. It was that her body didn't need what it was being fed. Like Edward, Shirley was taking in 1,000 mcg of vitamin A and 2,000 IU of vitamin D each day. But unlike Edward, her diet already provided plenty of both. Without knowing it, she had pushed her body past balance into excess. And all because of a common mistake: taking supplements based on advice from friends or advertisements, without ever checking what her body actually needed. As we age, the body changes in quiet, complex ways. Nutrients are absorbed differently. Some minerals become harder to hold on to. Others build up too easily. That's why guessing, no matter how well-intentioned, can cause more harm than good. Instead, what's truly needed is clarity, and clarity comes from testing. A simple blood panel can measure levels of 25 OD for vitamin D, magnesium, vitamin B12, and ferritin for iron stores. These markers tell the real story, not assumptions, not advertisements, just facts. For Shirley, that test changed everything. Her vitamin D levels were already high, her B12 was slightly low, and her magnesium was borderline deficient. With a few small adjustments, stopping the multivitamin, starting a gentle B-complex, and adding leafy greens to her meals, she began sleeping better, moving easier, and waking without that dull ache in her calves. Sometimes the most caring thing we can do for ourselves isn't adding more. It's listening more carefully to what our body is already saying. But now that we know what not to do, what simple steps actually help restore strength and stability to aging legs? Edward's solution turned out to be refreshingly simple. Let's take a look. Edward didn't have to stop taking supplements. He just had to change how he used them. Once he realized that the pills he thought were helping might actually be hurting, Edward made 3 simple changes. No extreme diets, no expensive programs, just practical steps guided by what his body truly needed. And in just 4 weeks, his legs felt lighter, his steps steadier, and the nightly cramps gone. The first thing he did was put aside his daily multivitamin. Not forever, just long enough to reset. Instead of relying on a single pill to meet every need, he turned to whole foods. Carrots, sweet potatoes, and leafy greens gave him natural vitamin A in safe amounts. Eggs, wild-caught salmon, and a little sunshine helped him balance his vitamin D. It wasn't about restriction. It was about returning to food that the body could recognize, absorb, and use. Next, Edward talked to his doctor and ordered a simple blood panel. It tested his 25 OD, magnesium, B12, and ferritin levels. The results surprised him. He didn't need more vitamin A or D. He needed more magnesium and B12. And that changed everything. Now, his supplements were tailored to his actual needs, not someone else's suggestion or a label designed for the masses. Finally, he committed to 5 minutes of movement every morning. Nothing fancy. Just a few rounds of chair squats and heel raises by the kitchen counter. Slow, steady, intentional. At first, he had to hold on for balance. But within 2 weeks, his legs felt stronger, more alive. According to Harvard Health, seniors over 65 who do light squats 3 times a week reduce their risk of falling by 40% in just 6 months. Edward could feel the difference, and so could his confidence. These weren't huge changes, but they worked because they respected the way the body actually functions with age. Edward didn't try to force his body into balance. He partnered with it, and in the end, that was the real shift. Not just in his legs, but in how he chose to care for himself every day from the ground up. So what happened after those 4 weeks? How did Edward's journey end? The final chapter is one worth remembering. Let's go there. If you've started losing that steady sense of control in your legs, remember this: it's never too late to turn things around. 6 weeks after Edward stopped taking the excess vitamins and switched to whole foods, simple movement, and lab-guided choices, Something changed. He no longer woke up in the middle of the night gripping his calves in pain. The cramps faded. His legs felt lighter. One morning, without thinking, he walked up the stairs without needing to hold the rail. He paused at the top, not out of breath, but in quiet disbelief. That small moment, climbing just 5 steps without fear, felt like reclaiming a part of himself he thought was gone for good. He didn't do anything dramatic. He didn't chase perfection. He just stopped doing what wasn't serving his body. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of healing. Because strength doesn't always come from lifting heavy weights or following strict routines. Sometimes it comes from listening to your body, learning from your mistakes, and choosing a better path forward, one small step at a time. If you're watching this for yourself or for someone you love, I invite you to do the same. Pause, reflect. Ask the hard question, am I taking what I truly need or what I've simply been told is good? Then start there, with one conversation, one meal, one deep breath. Maybe even a short letter to yourself or to someone you love, reminding them that strength is still possible. That independence is worth protecting. That your legs, your balance, your dignity are not things to surrender without a fight. And if this video reminded you of someone, your father, your sister, your friend who keeps taking those same pills every day without asking why, please share it with them. Because sometimes the right information sent at the right time can change the course of someone's future. Your legs are not just for walking. They are for standing tall in the life you still have left. Choose to protect them. Choose to begin again, starting today.